is Trevor Howard, one of Britain's finest actors, seen here in the role of Air Vice Marshal Park, a key figure in the historic Battle of Britain. The air battle that saved Britain from German invasion in 1940, now being fought again for a great motion picture. Air Chief Marshal Sir Hugh Dowding, here portrayed by Sir Laurence Olivier, was the man responsible for that victory. In 1936, he formed Britain's fighter command, with only biplanes, Furies and Gladiators. Nevertheless, he was one of the few Englishmen to recognize the implications of the mounting Nazi menace in Europe. He began to build Britain's air defences against a clash which he felt sure was coming. 1940, the start of the Battle of Britain, and Dowding's foresight was rewarded. Hurricanes and Spitfires had replaced the biplanes, and although hopelessly outnumbered by German aircraft, the British Air Force managed to hold their own and finally knock the Luftwaffe out of the skies. Almost 30 years later, and cameras began to turn on a movie reconstruction of the Battle of Britain. It had taken film producers Ben Fish, here seen talking to one of the film's many stars, Robert Shaw, and Harry Saltzman, 4 years of searching around the world to find enough aircraft and the necessary locations, prepare and shoot this mammoth air battle. The Luftwaffe, with its Me-109 fighters and Heinkel 111 bombers, was located in Spain. In England, Hurricanes and Spitfires were arriving daily. Royal Air Force ground crews were fascinated as the famous aircraft that most of them had merely heard about began to reappear on the airfields. Flying techniques in over 30 years had changed considerably, as these young RAF jet-trained pilots discovered.
Bob, how do you like the Spitfire now you've stolen it?
I think it's tremendous in the air, but it's jolly difficult to land, say, compared to the jet.
Do you find a great deal of difference in jumping transition from flying jets now to this old airplane?
Quite a lot, yes. So, things like philosophy of rudder and instrumentation was entirely different.
Well, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Great sport.
I wouldn't say it's a lot more difficult. I'd say it's a lot different to modern airplanes, especially in the landing, as John was saying.
Did you find it very difficult passing the instructions from the director to the aircraft yesterday when you were controlling it on camera?
It took a bit of getting used to. We soon got the hang of what the director wanted. We then had to try and find landmarks to pass to the pilot so he could see them plainly from the air. Another problem we had was that the director often said, "Come down lower, lower," and we had the feeling that we couldn't tell the pilot to come down too far. He had to decide for himself.
It's sort of myth about the Spitfire. Did you think it'd be as nice as it actually is to fly?
Well, it's something I always wanted to fly. I never thought I'd have the chance, and it's been tremendous. Now we've actually managed to get in the air with it.
An ambition realised for at least one RAF pilot. But what of the actors' feelings? Christopher Plummer.
I get a sense of great adventure from it, the kind of excitement that it must have been to jump into these little planes and take off and have dogfights that make the jets look sort of slow and comfortable and clumsy in comparison.
Under that hat is Michael Caine.
The first thing I noticed when I got into the cockpit was tremendous claustrophobia, because there's no room in them, I don't suppose there were any really big pilots, because they just wouldn't have got in them. It's frightening, because you're going along and you think, I'm going to hit a button and we're going to go all over the place. It all strikes me as being a bit dodgy.
For Robert Shaw, fears of what might happen became reality.
They told me to brake when the tail of the Spitfire was by that tall clump of grass. Brake I did. They'd sort of charged up the brakes during the night, so they were a lot stronger than they were. But, the pilot who crashed yesterday taxiing, he came over, he was very relieved, because he said, join the club. And apparently he'd been told off yesterday for crashing his Spitfire, so he was very relieved when somebody else did it. So, matter of fact, it was a very nice sensation. I feel very proud of myself, because I'm the only man ever, I suppose, who's crashed a Spitfire and had it in operations again within about 5 seconds.
1940 was a gloriously hot summer with clear blue skies. The one thing that the outnumbered RAF pilots longed for was bad weather, and with it a day's rest. 1968, and the rain both in England and in Spain fell mainly on the plains. Airfields became swamps, making flying impossible. Umbrellas appeared to shelter the tin helmets of the troops guarding Goering's train. Filming became waterlogged. So too did Reichsmarschall Goering.
Oh, ist das ein schlechtes Wetter. Kinder, bei diesem Wetter findet der Krieg im Saale statt.
When the sun came out again, it shone down on a curiously painted beast of the air, an American World War II B-25 Mitchell bomber, now the appointed camera plane, with the job of filming the spectacular air battles. Precision was the key word. You can't play games with aircraft. Each sortie was worked out by cameramen and pilots down to the last detail.
The Spitfires will attack the rear.
Briefings took place in the same way as they had 30 years earlier. The B-25 colour scheme may appear garish. It needed to be. But it was only by closely watching the colours and stripes that the mass of aircraft, British and German, were able to position themselves correctly for the 4 cameras in the B-25. The Battle of Britain was on again.